This is David Wilcock, and you're listening to a Divine Cosmos audio blog. Today's date is, the 28th of March. It's a Wednesday. It's 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm here with a remarkable new whistleblower who has just come forward. His name is Drake. That's what he's going by. And I contacted him because I have been covering this story about pending mass arrests. You have to understand the scope of what we're talking about here. We're not talking about 10 people, 20 people. We're talking about a systematic, potentially worldwide effort, although most of these conspirators are in the G5 countries, so I've heard. But it's a very widespread effort to effectively give us as a planet a massive dose of antibiotics against an infection that has been threatening to almost completely destroy its host. The host being the earth and its people, and the animals and the plants and the trees and everything. So Drake came along on the internet recently. I was sent an email by him announcing that he was going to have some radio shows. But when the email first passed by my desk, I didn't quite catch the impact of what it was saying. Because up until now, the only people who have really been reporting on these pending mass arrests whatsoever have been Benjamin Fulford and myself. And in both cases, we have, together and independently, sets of contacts, some of which are deeply embedded within the Pentagon, who have reported to us that this is very real. In fact, I had heard from an off-the-books source, this is not somebody who's gone public at all, that this had been sparked by 9/11 to a large degree, that many people in the military realized that they were not in the chain of need to know, and that this was not Arabs with box cutters that caused these buildings to fall into their own footprint. If that could happen, if kerosene can melt steel, then every kerosene heater ever built is a massive hazard. But yet they're all sitting there just fine. So something is going on here. People know about it, they're scared of it, and in what I call the sheep effect, they feel that if they keep their head down, then the wolf won't know that he's been spotted, but the sheep who's dumb enough to look up and stare the wolf in the eye is going to make him charge, and that's the one who ends up dying. Well, I'm not afraid of death. Neither is Drake. He's here, and he has put a public face behind something that up until now has sounded like two guys stroking their egos, trying to say something that makes everybody feel good but has no teeth behind it. And now here you are, and I want to hear what you have to say. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself and how you got into all this?
Well, what I'd like to do in conjunction with that is let people know what we're not.
Okay, great.
This will give everybody a better idea as to what's going on.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing I should point out is that I called you the other night and we spoke for 4 hours and 22 minutes is what the phone said when I hung it up. And I called you jointly with one of my very senior top insiders. So you will now be able to vouch that you spoke to him and how amazing that discussion was. And more importantly, I've trusted him, built it up over years, and he vetted you out and actually identified dozens of specific points that you said that are not on public record that you could not have known unless you are the bona fide, authentic, real deal. So I want to make that point first.
Cool.
So some disclaimers you said you have to give us here. What are you not?
Yeah, there's a boatload of people who would like to jump on the bandwagon and get whatever they can get in terms of snatching names or name dropping, that sort of thing. They post a website with a certain name and everybody gravitates to it because of this or that. Whether it's selling anything or not doesn't seem to matter. Basically, and I want to make this absolutely clear, there's a thing called nation states. Now, the project we undertook falls under the definition of what a nation state is in terms of sovereignty. However, there is no such thing as nation states. It does not exist. There is nothing by that name from us. Okay?
Okay.
Without affiliation, there's even less. So any of the websites out there that say nation states is probably somebody trying to either sell a widget or build up their importance, or they got an ego problem, or they want to take issue with what we are about. Now, we do not have a group. There is no group. There are several groups, but no main group. There's no leader. And we don't have a database that we keep on anybody. Most of the people are anonymous in that we do not know exactly all of the people involved in this. Now, primarily what this was a project given to us, and I'll explain the parameters of it in a minute. The process was at first an accident in some ways. The information from me came over a radio show that I complained about. Somebody took notes and tried it, and it worked. And we'll cover a little of that in just a minute. But the only basic thing that we've done is a notification process that was defined by the basis of lawful notification of a nation state, its existence, and proclamation of that to the world.
And the idea behind doing this is ultimately for sovereignty and freedom.
Exactly.
For actual states in the United States as well as for individuals in the United States.
Exactly.
Okay.
There are several things that go into this. Now, we're not affiliated with the White Knights, gatekeepers. It's just us. And we, as I said, don't even know everybody involved.
Neither do I. It's funny because another contact I have was demanding that they be put in touch with this group. And I said, look, I only have 2 points of contact with this group. Well, okay, 3, but nobody wants to say anything. I mean, the amount of information I've gotten has just been in little bitty trickles, but nonetheless, if you add up what the trickles are saying, this is an incredible, incredible story. What's getting ready to happen here? And some of the things you were saying on the other radio show about how much has already been moved into position and how much is ready to go right now, it's astonishing. So I want people to hang in there, because right now we're sort of going through some of the bookkeeping that has to be done to build up to this. But once we get to the main thrust of this story, it's absolutely amazing. So please go on.
Okay. Now, if somebody wants to know about what we're doing, and they would like to listen to the radio programs, which are archived, they need to go to Freedom Reigns. That's Freeedom, just like freedom. Reigns is REIGNS.US. That website has been put up to alleviate us having to repeat ourselves and the extraordinary glut of filling up the mailbox and this sort of thing, so we have time to do what we're needing to do. Now, there is one stipulation in this, and I want to make this absolutely clear. We do not have anything to do with RAP Russo, which is Tim Turner's group.
Restore America program is what you're talking about, right?
If you go on the freedomreigns.us website, there are exposures for that group.
Yeah, I was just going to say the name Tim Turner seems to be popping up in my mind because I think someone wrote an expose on him recently, didn't they?
Yes. One of our principals has an extraordinary library of things that out the group as to what the people in charge were doing, what they intend to do, and the ultimate goal was to literally arbitrarily create their own government and put it in place. Tim Turner has declared himself as a, quote, savior, God, or whatever. All funds collected in the country were to go to him personally, among other things, and it gets worse from there. I'm not going to get into the details.
Well, wouldn't this also serve the function of owning the opposition, flushing out the people that really want to do something, and making them think.
I'm pretty sure that that's probably what the idea was.
Okay.
There are several of these types of operations. I call it the cabal.
Right, and the only reason why I'm confident that you're not, well, one of the main reasons why I'm confident that you are not one of those is I vetted you out with someone who has impeccably proven trust over years of time. And the degree to which we validated you was vast, and it encompassed over 4 hours of discussion. So I do not consider that you are in that group. I have to keep my thinking cap on as you're talking and remember that one of the epidemics we have on the internet right now is people who think that they're smart just because they disagree with every single thing they hear, and they believe that every single thing they hear must be a lie and must be the opposite of the truth. It's very difficult to counteract that because it's a knee-jerk response that people have had due to the extent to which they've been lied to. And I know that you're not lying because, first of all, your words resonate to me as truth, and second of all, I proved that you're telling the truth in a multiplicity of ways in this conversation that we had. So please go on.
I thank you for that. Now, sure. I'm going to tell everybody who listens to this or reads it, and I understand it's going to be transcribed, do your own research and homework, please. Go to Freedom, FREEDOM, Reigns, REIGNS.US. Put it in your search engine, and the website that contacts run through to the group and things that we get, our radio shows, this sort of thing, is all there. If you need further questions, ask the webmaster, and we will see what we can do about supplying an answer to it. Now, basically, this is the prelude to what exactly went on. You want me to go into that now?
Well, actually, let's talk about underwater basket weaving. That might be a little more interesting.
I have trouble holding my breath that long.
No, I mean, this is what we're here for. I've heard from my own sources that there is an absolutely vast amount of incriminating evidence that has been collected that will bring down whatever you want to call them, the New World Order, the Illuminati, etc. You gave me some very specific information about how much of that evidence exists. I don't know whether that was public or not, so I'm not going to say more right now. But you also have given much more specific information publicly than what I've heard privately. And you have fleshed this thing out into a three-dimensional entity that has gone way beyond the point of a speculative what-if and into, okay, this is a vast operation. They've been building up to it for a long time. It's extremely clever, and it's extremely intelligent how it's been put together, and it has been calculated for maximum effect and maximum success. And there's a great deal of coordination that will be involved. And I think that probably one of the main things that needs to happen, and why they asked you to come forward, is we really need to help the public know that this is not another silly New World Order martial law takeover, which is what obviously certain disinformation outlets are going to try to spin this as once it happens. But this is in fact the saving of the planet. And it's the military, as you were saying, not following unlawful orders and actually living up to their oath of enlistment, which says right in the oath that every soldier has to swear to before God that he will defend and protect the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That's the United States Constitution.
The Constitution, that's right.
You're right about this. I learned how to. I came up above the radar by accident, but nobody else was putting out any of the basis of the plans involved, nor the level at which this is actually coming from. Consequently, I felt it my patriotic duty to at least lay out some of the basics. Now, some detail I cannot go into and won't go into. If we reach a certain level, I'll say, no, we can't talk about that, and we can go on to another subject. But the basis for this is that I learned how to walk point in Vietnam. So shooting at me does not do a lot of good other than to really upset me for the simple fact that in Vietnam, every time we sat down to eat, we'd get shot at. And scooping your food off of the ground ain't no fun, and it's crunchy, among other things. Really does things to me when somebody shoots at me. So that's not something I recommend. Now,
my father voluntarily enlisted in the Army Reserve and served our country in Vietnam, and was actually one of the only journalists over there reporting on, among other things, the rock and roll movement in Woodstock. So he was sort of like one of the Good Morning Vietnam people. And he did get PTSD, and I had kind of a rough childhood because, in a way, it was like having a drill sergeant for a father. And that's sort of the aftermath of how Vietnam has impacted me. I just turned 39 years old, and I have every degree of respect and admiration for your service, and I thank you for serving this country.
You're very welcome. The basis of this is twofold. Learned how to walk point. Now my goodies are above the radar, so I got put out in the open for two reasons. One, I felt it my patriotic duty to try to inform the people as to what is really going on so that they don't have to listen to a bunch of idiots on the internet spouting off whatever kind of imaginary stuff they come up with. People do not need to listen to those bad dreams. That's primarily what they are. Most of it is propaganda, and most people don't know what the word propaganda means. In Spanish, they put it on trash cans because that's where it goes. So everybody needs to kind of get their heads wrapped around this. Now,
I call it fear porn.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I coined that term because I believe that people read this and get addicted to it because it physiologically stimulates you in the same way that sexual material does. It actually makes your heart rate go up, your breathing rate goes up. You get a high off of being terrified. And unfortunately, the powers that were, as I like to call them, have very effectively manipulated that human response so that you have entire outlets of alternative news that, as you just said, have built themselves and have profited extensively off of the undeniably pessimistic view that they keep having. And it's almost impossible to listen to them because they just, when folks like you get on there who have a positive message, you just come against this incredible wall of negativity and fear and just absolute denial that anything good could be coming out of all this stuff that's going on in the world. And I do believe that good people have seen what's going on, and they're rising up, and they're not going to take it anymore.
Well, that pretty much sums it up. Now, I'm going to reiterate this again. Do your own research and homework. It's not the responsibility of somebody to teach you the basic English language in order to read a website. Most people have the capability, they just refuse to do so and would rather go off in gaga land in front of the TV or play a video game, or they're busy texting their friends and playing with themselves. The ideology is this. We're coming up against the wall. Now, most people, and I don't care who reads this, most people with any kind of common sense at all knows that there are some real serious things going on in the economy. The lack of jobs, the amount of foreclosures, the separation of families because of economic problems. Okay, these are some of the basis of the fear that these people who originated live on. Now, I want to lay the basic of how I found this, and it was an accident, quite honestly. Okay. I've been studying and been involved in freedom movements and all that stuff for years. I've tried in every way, shape, or form to get somebody to get up off the couch, put the beer down, get up off the couch, and do a little something. Go talk to the neighbor, anything. And
yeah, but what if it's really good beer?
Well, yeah, but the problem is you sit on the couch and all you do is you consume the beer and you yak about stuff that doesn't necessarily mean anything. You probably would have a good conversation, but most people are talking, ooh, look at that guy shoot that ball at the hoop or whatever. And I'm going to tell you, that's superficial. That's one
Absolutely.
of the distractions. Just like texting, just like a lot of phone conversation. And the things that do not stay on target. Now, within all this, I've also studied a lot of what's called freedom efforts. This includes freedom philosophers and their type. This man got on a radio show and was spouting off all kind of halfway measures that would primarily and basically get somebody put in jail if they did them. Well, because of my
You're saying people grabbing their guns and just, now is it, you got to go out there and start shooting?
No, this was even more basic than that. This was like being able to argue a traffic ticket out of court.
Oh, right.
Real simple stuff. Well, the only problem is that you can get up to 6 months for playing games with the judge if you do not know how to do this. And this guy was leaving out critical information that would guarantee almost that you got the 6 months because you were giving the finger to the judge. There's some things you do not do.
Yeah.
So the guy basically had upset me. Now, the basis that goes...
Well, you don't want to get a Vietnam vet grumpy. That can be a big problem.
Well, yeah, but the deal was this, okay? I needed to know. And everybody had told me you can't do this and you can't do that. Okay, and then you have things like the Texas Freedom School or Freedom School of Texas, I forget which it is, that does have some good information, but it is kind of fragmented. Okay. And some of it is not complete, even though people would like you to think they are. But for $9.95, you can get the book that explains it all just right. Well, I'm not willing to pay for freedom. That's not what it says anywhere about freedom at all, as far as I can find it. So I decided to do my own research and my own homework. And I had looked at this stuff. I tried to get people up off the couch, and that didn't work. So I didn't have much to do except do the research. I started looking at the basis of law, where it comes from. I'm talking about way back in the woods of history. Some of the places I went required me to have anything that I was intending to copy or borrow a copy of electronically approved before they would release it. Okay, some of this stuff is not for consumption by the general public, and they make sure of that. Well, after 2.5 years, I figured out pretty much basically what everything said, how it was structured. Can
an ordinary civilian gain access to these documents, or was this because you had some sort of classified access?
No, anybody that it depends on whether or not you're as nasty as a junkyard dog and tenacious as a bulldog and refuse to take no for an answer, and you bother somebody until they decide to allow you to do something simply because they don't want to fool with you anymore.
I gotcha.
That basically does research, and it covers all of it. Those people who won't listen eventually do when you get a hold of them every day. Right. When you send them 50 emails a day, one every minute or something, it bugs them enough. It's like Mom. When you used to only get something from Mom, if you bug her enough, she'll say, "Concentrate and do it, leave me alone." And that works. Okay. So, the song, I believe, was You Get Your Way by Insisting. Okay. I insisted, so I got the information. I studied this over about 2.5 years, and believe me, it is intricate. It is extraordinary in terms of what it told me was a simplistic, basic way to step outside of the normal controls of what people consider as laws. You have limitations, supposedly, between a citizen of one country and a citizen of another. Those two legally are supposedly separated. That's not quite true. Little things of that nature were what I was after to learn. So I'd studied this stuff for about 2.5 years, and I finally took a break from it because my head was beginning to hurt. And I decided to, listen to a little radio and play a little listen to a little internet radio and play a little cards on the machine. And lo and behold, here comes this friggin' idiot. He's one of these freedom philosophers. And this is somebody that thinks they know what they're doing when they are missing several critical points that will get your butt put in jail. But they want you to try it. I've done this. Yeah, right.
This is the guy that would teach you how to beat a traffic ticket, but you could go to jail for 6 months?
Yeah, that sort of thing. Real simple.
Okay.
And if you go about it correctly, it works fine. Okay? But if you don't, you end up actually opposing the judge.
Right.
And that's a big no-no. What you do is you allow the law to oppose the judge. Then the judge has to rule in a succinct manner, plus you're not standing in a landmine field. That is not a nice place to stand, believe me. I've been in one. So, this dink gets on there and decides to mouth off a bunch of stuff, and all he did was almost instantly make me mad. So, I snatched the phone, and I called in, and I said, hey. And he said, hi. And I said, you might be, according to what you just put out, because most of that belongs in the toilet because you're going to get people in trouble. What do you mean? I said, your information is not total. It's not complete, and you're going to get people in trouble by espousing this, by saying that, if you do this, you can get away, you can tell the judge what to do. Well, no, that ain't part of this, and you know it. If you don't, I'm giving you a lot more credit than you deserve. So why don't you shut up and listen? Well, about this time, the host of the show comes on and says, hey, come on now, you're going to have to watch it. And I said, hey, look, did you realize that you can be held liable if somebody gets in trouble for what this guy is saying on your show? Really? I said, yeah. Now, you want me to clear this mess up? Yes. So, then the guy comes back with this sovereignty routine. And I got upset for the second time and told him to shut up and listen, and maybe he would learn something, that he might want to learn how to read at the same time. What I basically did was I laid out the primary basis for what is required in order to declare any area. And if you've got an area somewhere in the middle of Timbuktu land, but it's yours, and it's registered in terms of the boundaries, basically, or you have at least real definitive markings so you can tell where it is and what it is and how big it is, you can declare that area sovereign. And by doing so, you actually create your own nation state.
Well, if I declared my toilet a sovereign zone, then I could drop waste into it and be pretty much like the government.
Well, except that so long as it stays on within your area, yes. Now, by that I mean you should declare the whole yard and use a finger system if you're going to do something of that nature, simply so that you're protected legally.
Right on.
That's what I'm saying. There's little bits of information, and it can get squirrely, and it's a lot of fun to deal with. But, so I laid this process out. Basically what we did, and the way the process worked, happened, as I said, by accident. While I'm telling this guy how this works, somebody in this great state of Pennsylvania took notes.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't have any idea anybody would even be listening other than to shut this turkey up that didn't know what he was talking about.
Right, so obviously a state itself could be a sovereign zone or declared as such, and those who govern the state could get wind of what you've figured out from your extensive research and implement that research.
Yes.
Wow. That's awesome.
So basically that's what happened in Pennsylvania. The person that took the notes was fairly knowledgeable in the real sovereign legalities and lawfulness, and took that knowledge in combination with what I had put together, got with some other people, and they said, well, yeah, let's see what happens. And so they put together a process of notification, and they sent it off to the International Court of The Hague.
Oh, my God.
And this is the civilian division, as I understand it, or civil division. And they, of course, sent a reply back when they received it that they had received that package. The rest of it was a receipt of the intent of the package. They had made a copy of what they had sent, certified copy of the original, that sort of thing. Now, their package, then, they're sitting on a package there. The Hague's got one in their records.
Right. So now you have a complete paper trail.
Exactly. Now, the crux of this...
This might be sort of like a subpoena where the simple fact that the Hague accepted the paperwork, by definition, locks them into some sort of binding arrangement.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. This is exactly and only a notification process. I want to make that perfectly clear.
Okay.
What happens through receipt of the paperwork is that it goes into the Hague record. And in that manner, the notification then is a publication, like you'd use in a newspaper to advertise, I'm not responsible for my debts any further. Well, This thing says, we are now a sovereign nation state.
Wow,
and
gotcha.
It's very similar to that, only this is an international newspaper, in effect. We have basically, by sending one little pack like that, created a sovereign, independent nation state.
Wow.
Okay, so as soon as they got receipt that this thing had been delivered, they got a call from a higher up in the Pentagon. And that person says, I understand you guys have been doing some notification internationally? Yes. I understand that you seem to find this process as being rather simple? Yes. The next thing was, do you think you can replicate or reproduce that sucker? And the person went, I don't know. And what you got right then was, I have no idea, quite simply. We can see what's available. We can try and find out. The person at the Pentagon, and I'm not going to say that it's a guy because I'm not going to put gender on it, simply that, it could be a female. The people at the Pentagon said, go for it, let's see what happens. They said, okay, we'll give it a shot. Now, these people are involved in freedom just like I was. They wanted to be able to do something that was real, proactive, didn't get anybody in trouble, and yet was something that could be also used in other ways. Okay, they didn't know at the time what that little simplistic package for that one state did, and didn't find out until after they started researching it.
What's the time window we're talking about right now?
In terms of
when this all happened?
This happened, started in about October of last year.
Okay.
Which is not an exact date. As of November, we decided that we were going to move on this. I got involved because I knew one of the people that had been involved with these people before anyway, and was requested, hey, would you like to be involved in this? And I said, sounds good to me. It's better than anything else I've seen. And then when they hit me with the idea of what it contained, I said, no, wait a minute. I was on a radio show and I explained to them what happened, and they said, really? Okay, so here you go. You got somebody getting upset because some idiot gets on a radio show. He tells them what they can do with themselves and how to do it. For real, instead of playing games with things. Somebody takes notes, they do it, and all of a sudden, officials from the government in the military are interested. Can you do it again? And along with that, there's a combination of other people involved with their own shows at different times during the week. And these people, I met those people and got involved sort of indirectly with them. The whole thing...
right, I was going to say, it would seem that each state is going to have squirrely barriers to go through, different from Pennsylvania, in order to get this all off the ground.
Well, it depends on whether or not you're part of the original 13 colonies, and or whether or not your constitution is de jure, which is lawful by common law, or de facto, which is the corporate government. There's a difference.
Okay, gotcha.
I hate those keywords simply because when people hear it, they turn the friggin' TV off. They don't want to hear that. Well, I'm sorry, but you do need to pay attention to the difference.
Right.
At any rate, so we start boogieing with this. Okay, we'll take the project and we'll run with it. We were able to receive notice on about the end of February of this year that the whole package of a majority of the states had been received by The Hague. In other words, each little nation-state package went into a big box, and the big box was delivered to The Hague, and we got notification of the entire package. Now,
let me ask you this.
Yes.
If the military, in its oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against domestic enemies, gets word of a civilian-based initiative which demonstrates that the states wish to have their sovereignty returned to them, doesn't that legally give them the right to move forward on this and enforce the will of the majority of the states?
Well, that's part of the process I'm coming to.
Okay, great.
This is not just a simplistic process of sending a newspaper clipping overseas.
Oh, I get that.
Receipt that it got to where it was going. So, the basic premise of a nation state is this. What most people used was either their own constitution or they wrote one. It had to agree with the 1787 United States Constitution to include the 13th, and I mean the original 13th Amendment, where certain people are not allowed to hold foreign offices here in the States. The Bill of Rights, the Articles of Confederation, and that real cool document called the Declaration of Independence. By declaring our sovereignty and our disengagement, or our effort to remove ourselves being individual states, from the corporate United States government, what this did was this rebirthed the Declaration of Independence, which states on page 2 that when the government gets out of whack, you got the right to take care of the problem.
Absolutely.
Now, here's the other part of this. The manner and format of using those documents, the original founding documents, in conjunction with a meeting by representative residents of a state, gives those people the right to make the declaration. This then gives legal authority by the civilian authority to the military to take actions as necessary to back up the civilian action.
That's what I thought. Okay, perfect.
It's kind of convoluted, and I know it's not real simple, but simply, we sent off notification. The military gave us gold star. They just loved it. Okay.
Now, I'm assuming that just so people get clear on this, you're not talking about just a group of ordinary folks who are like surfing the net and listening to truth radio. These are actually people who have some degree of influence in these states that you were networking with. No.
As a matter of fact, some of them are not very well educated. And I'm going to make this perfectly clear. You don't need influence in order to take certain actions.
I see. So the simple fact that we are all American citizens, everyone whom you're speaking about, myself included, any citizen has the right to do this.
Yes, basically.
Okay, perfect.
Now, the premise is this. In terms of declaring your state as free of the United States government, and I'm talking about the corporate government and all of its affiliates, what happens is that each state becomes, according to the notification process, its own sovereign nation. So this is where the nation states handle comes from.
I see.
It's just a plurality of what individual states did. You have to have a certain number of people who reside in each state in order to accomplish the process. It's not difficult. We do have backup and assistance for that if somebody has problems. So in our effort, we got not only a majority of the states, enough of the majority of the states to have a cushion in case there was some problem with some of the paperwork, along with a fair group of Indian nations who also submitted paperwork in such a fashion that the basis is this. The United States has been set free from the corporate government, literally. on a lawful basis as recognized internationally.
Well, I can hear the howling laughter of skeptics who are already stroking their egos and saying, oh, sure, he can say whatever he wants, but if it ever even made it up to the Supreme Court, they would just knock it down, just like they appointed Bush in the whole election debacle between Bush and Gore.
Not exactly.
Okay.
As I stated, I went back to the origins of law. And the origins of law come from the origins of law as written on cuneiform tablets by the ancient Sumerians. Mm. The tablet that I was privileged to get a copy of comes from somewhere in the neighborhood of 11,000 BC.
Wow.
Okay, from that tablet, you got ecclesiastic law. From ecclesiastic law, you got canon law. From the combination of ecclesiastic and canon law, you have all of your statutes and regulations that are considered law under common law.
And
now,
this underlies...
common law was developed basically in England so that the poor serf, and this is the hired hand that works the land and tries to feed his family and make money for the boss,
right,
would have some form of protection in case the some dude they were working for decided to go crazy and kick him off the land. He could object. That's where common law comes in. The basis and premise of common law is simple. It contains two basic things. One is no injured party and no property damage, and it's property of any kind, no crime. Just that simple. This is the basis for much of the legal documentation that we used. It's also some of the basis for which we used the process. Now, the neat thing about this is that the manner of the process steps outside of both ecclesiastic-based law and canon law. Any form of statute, be that local, state, national, or international. And it protects itself because it does not state anything that other than the simple notification process. So it stays within the system, but also is set in such a fashion that it's outside of any challenge. This was the idea that I was trying to find out about.
Well, these occult governments obviously don't want people knowing about this, and that appears to be why you had so much trouble getting those documents.
That's pretty much part of it. Now, the rest of it is that they found out about the process we were using and interfered with that as much as possible. Certain notary seals were challenged. Certain Secretary of State offices refused apostilling documentation, and a whole bunch of things. However, in spite of all the fun and games, we did get it done. It has been delivered. The copy, and I'm talking about the real copy. This is not something you run off a copy machine, but something that is traditionally accepted as a de jure copy of the legal documents, was submitted to the correct people in the military, who were just delighted to find this. Oh. Now, I'm going to go back to something else. Back in the day, I was involved with nuclear defense of the country. I had some rather high security clearances, etc. Due to that fact, I was allowed at a later date, now this is after the security clearances and whatnot, but I had proved that I was trustworthy because there was nothing that I let out that was classified. There was nothing that was of a sensitive nature that I would divulge, even though I knew them. And I talked to a couple of people about this. Eventually, I was given this certain person wanted to know about me, and so I got interviewed a couple of times by some colonels and whatnot. And finally, the guy said, one of them showed up in a staff car and said, somebody wants to see you. Can you come with me? And I said, no, I ain't going to be, put in the trunk, am I? And he laughed. we took a ride over to this certain level officer's house.
What time window are we in right now?
79.
Okay, so 79 is when this event that you're speaking of happened.
Basically,
okay,
in that area. I'm not going to give exact dates because I don't want to out people.
I just wanted the window.
And let me express this real clearly. If somebody finds out who these people are, they're dead.
Oh, I know that.
So are their families. They get to stand there and watch their families be tortured to death. And I'm not going to put anybody through that by outing them. So I'm going to say arbitrarily 79, give or take.
Okay, great.
In that process, he invited this officer invited me into his home. And I asked him what I was doing there because I had no idea. Now, this is after I'm out of the military. And the officer said, I got something I need you to read. And I said, why me? He said, because I feel I can trust you and I want your opinion. He put a stack of papers, that's about 5 inches thick, in a binder on the table.
5 inches thick?
Yeah, I don't know how many pages. I didn't bother. I didn't even get to read it all. I spent about 4 hours reading. And I went through about... give or take 3/4 of it.
Okay.
I didn't read the whole thing. I got tired of reading, and it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I had to have more than just the coffee he was offering, and preferably some kind of a soft place to lay down on. So I told him, I said, well, what is it? What kind of opinion do you want? He said, what do you think of it? I said, well, it says the plan. I said, where'd this come from? He wouldn't really answer. He said it had been in the works for quite a while. I said, give me a date. And he did. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I said, so in other words, certain people took issue with what was going on at the time, figured that the ship of state was going to head in the wrong direction, and decided to start putting this plan together so that you guys would have some form of guidance in terms of what the general outcomes would be. He said, exactly. I said, I like what I read.
You might have told this story a lot. You didn't say anything about what the document says. I'm assuming this is something about rescuing America from these Illuminati people?
Well, primarily it was generally at the beginning the ship of state was screwing up badly.
Okay.
And to keep it from sinking, they actually implemented a general plan real quick. That was probably the first inch or so of the documentation. In such a manner that the people in the military could cause influence to happen to people outside the military who had the capability of changing some simple things.
Well, it must have been frustrating to see Watergate come and go, but then basically after a little slap on the wrist, it's all business as usual.
Well, you have to realize what was really going on. Tricky Dick was trying to become a dictator.
Sure.
Could not pull the power correctly, and so that's what happened, basically. Yeah, somebody got a little slap on the wrist and nothing really came out of it. Now,
sure.
They did not want to out the fact that they had been involved. This is the other reason that you saw only a slap on the wrist, and you saw nobody in high office involved in it much, one way or the other. There was a couple of people that were used as scapegoats, but other than that, nobody of significance. That's exactly part of the plan.
Right.
Okay, however, they could put these people in a real sticky situation with a lot of pressure if at any time they decided they didn't want to comply with the next portion of the plan, which starts after about an inch of this. So you're going through these things one at a time. And as this is going, you're also increasing the scope of the plan. Now, the plan basically started with the idea of a military coup. I'm not going to lie to you. They were that fed up at that point, and they felt endangered enough at that point that they actually considered it, and each and every last person involved signed a pseudonym name. It's a code name. Each one of them's got one. That they disagreed with the idea. That is not the way to go because it disagrees with the basis or premise of posse comitatus, that the military does not have authority over the civilian population and are not to engage them. So there was enough old-timers that disagreed that convinced everybody that was not cool, so they decided no. And so over the years, this plan built up. And it got more convoluted. It got more complicated. It got.
And this is all in the 5-inch document you saw in '79.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in '79, they didn't really know which way things were going to go, because if you remember, from about '75 on, after the fall of Vietnam, there was kind of a dead space. Nobody did any real serious actions of any kind anywhere, not in politics, militarily, or anything. During that particular time is where the rest of the document came about. These people were working 24/7 or something in order to make sure that the plan encompassed everything they could think of that could possibly come up. Okay, it's been added to, I guarantee you that, but the dead zone lasted until about 85, 86, when things started happening again. People were taking definitive action. You had a lot of combinational political and military and financial things going on at that time.
Well, people must have realized, among other things, that the escalating war rhetoric between the U.S. and the Soviet Union could annihilate the planet. And you're not going to stand by and watch the planet be killed and not attempt to do something to stop it if it's within your means to do so.
Exactly. The threat of total annihilation was one that was unacceptable to any of the military powers, no matter what the politicians told them.
Right.
If the commander-in-chief during those times had stated quite clearly, we're going to start World War III, shoot your nukes, the military would have told them to go take a flying leap at a rolling donut. No, we ain't doing that. It's for that reason. To go along with this, okay, you got these periods of buildups. Now, I saw that document way back when. I thought that it probably was a dead duck. I can tell you right now, it's not only not a dead duck, but it's something that they've been following rather religiously. The thing lays out certain premise, certain areas of concern. Some of those things have changed, so this is why I say that the document itself has been added to and modified. But the basic premise of it is simply this. They also, just like me, were extraordinarily frustrated by freakazoids such as the Hare Krishnas or whomever was dancing in California at the time. They didn't want those people running the country. They didn't think they could really do that great of a job.
I don't understand how Hare Krishnas could run the country.
Exactly. That's what they thought too, and that's how come they're not now.
Are they saying that these people were socially active and wanted to take over the government or something?
Well, they would have liked to have found somebody that would stand up as a group and actually do something in terms of freedom. And they've been trying ever since the Hare Krishnas and whomever, war protesters, you name it. Nobody as a group collectively, nationwide, would stand up and do anything. Same problem I've had, same problem everybody that I know has dealt in the freedom areas has had. Try and pry somebody off the couch. It ain't easy.
Right.
So they're kind of bumping along going, boy, I hope this, I hope that the end of the world don't come. I mean, what are we going to do? We don't have any civilian authority to do anything.
Well, and the amount of secrecy that would have to be observed in order to preserve this plan is vast. I mean, yes. One weak link in the chain and the whole damn load falls and breaks apart. Well,
they weren't so concerned with that, but they were concerned with the fact that there were certain code names in it that would out people that were seriously interested in implementing the plan.
Right.
The plan was simple. The military was willing to back, with civilian authority, a resurrection of what we started out with originally in terms of government. The idea that a politician has control over a battlefield is totally averse to the idea of even being on a battlefield. Now,
that's true.
My recommendation to them was to quietly sneak up, would take some Navy SEALs or somebody that's really good, and pick one of them politicians that's got a big mouth and snatch that dough. Put him on the battlefield. Not necessarily in danger, but get him close enough so that it becomes a personal deal. Then abscond with him again, put him back. And and I'll guarantee you there'll be a whole bunch of attitude changes. Well, they wouldn't do it. That was my suggestion a long time ago. Anyway, so we're bumping along with this. I've tried everything I could. I've had a combination of contacts and whatnot. I've had a combination of political dealings in conjunction with a whole lot of people.
I'm sorry. Let me just take one moment here to try to track this in terms of timeline. You were presented.
You can't get an exact timeline because that will expose people.
I understand, but I just want to give a very vague overview. So you encountered this 5-inch monster document in 79.
Basically, in that area.
You mentioned that you still had contact with this insider network circa 86.
Yeah.
So these people stayed in some degree of contact with you and continued to spitball about what group you could actually contact that would be able to back you on this. And you kept coming up short because none of these groups were sufficient in terms of the motive and the intent to actually carry through with this plan.
Well, not only that, but you couldn't get, there was no national grouping of any kind. And you cannot take a group from one state and infuse it into another one from another state. All they want to do is argue about who's in charge or whatever. And it is a righteous mess trying to do so. And it doesn't matter what group it is. And believe me, I used to get lists. Here, try these guys. Here's some more. You know, I must have gone through, I don't know, I'd say a few thousand groups. Somebody have a website on the internet, I'd contact them. I tried everything that I could think of. I tried being nasty. I tried actually putting pictures of politicians out visiting whorehouses. You name it. I've tried it, and I couldn't. I didn't even get the politician to get mad. I mean, he wouldn't address it because he didn't have to. You know, that's just some idiot, and he probably made the picture up. So we're bumping along. I'm bumping along, and I'm beginning to get tired of it. And quite honestly, I was at the point of quitting. I just, I got my gun. Hopefully, I'm still able to shoot it if they decide to break down the front door. I was giving up. And lo and behold, along comes this crazy person in Pennsylvania who takes notes on a radio show. And this was back mid of last year, give or take. Actually, probably around May, June area, that I got on that radio show. These people took notes, and all of a sudden they did it. And then all of a sudden, they contact some of the people that I'm in contact with. I'm just kind of playing around, seeing what's out there. And they say, hey, we got a possible project. I said, what's that? They explained it to me. I said, no, wait a minute. I put that out over a radio show just not too long ago. And, well, somebody not only took notes, but they did it. I said, you're kidding me. You mean somebody got off the couch? Yes. Okay.
Wow.
So
after all those years, it's just incredible.
Well, so over the period of time, from about the 20th of February this year, since that date, we have had a free country. Now, the plan is this. The military will back, and believe me, you got to have the military involved. Whether you like it or not doesn't make a difference. Now, there's a difference. You do have good guys and bad guys no matter where you go. There are more good guys than there are bad guys in the military. I have found very few that are actually really evil, even in the bad guys. Some of them ain't too cool to be around, but most of them are pretty great people. I fully support, as a veteran, I fully support our troops, period. So does everybody in this movement.
I would say that people join the military to pledge their lives to defend and protect the Constitution and the people.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're not out there to enhance the lifestyles and comfort of the rich and famous.